Welcome to The Author Show, where we present new authors and books. From fiction to self-help and everything in between, you'll find it all here. To watch the TV version of our program, visit authorswebtv.com. That's authorswebtv.com. And now, let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming the program author Marylee MacDonald, and she is the author of Montpelier Tomorrow. Marylee is a prize-winning author, literary editor, and caregiver advocate. She helps those involved in healthcare understand the struggles faced by families providing long-term care. Marylee, how are you?
I'm great.
Well, let's start with a big question. Tell us about your book, please.
Montpelier Tomorrow is about a midlife mom who has just finished caring for her elderly parents, and she wants to use the time now to have a closer relationship with her daughter. She goes to her daughter's house expecting that her daughter is going to have a new baby and that she's going to be able to pitch in, and instead she learns her daughter's husband has ALS.
So who did you write your book for specifically?
This book is for women in the sandwich generation, women 45 and up who put their kids through college. Maybe they're caring for their elderly parents, and they're trying to help out with the young families, their children's young families. I wrote this book for parents, moms specifically, who would do anything to keep their children from harm.
Now, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you could say runs throughout the book?
Forgiveness runs throughout this book. Forgive yourself for the small parenting mistakes you made when you were young and didn't know any better. Even though your children may not forgive you, you need to forgive yourself. That's the message in the book.
If you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
I hope readers are going to read this book and gain some perspective on their own parenting years, as well as learn how to deal with adversity. Everybody faces a healthcare crisis, more so now than ever. And I think this is especially an important time to be looking at how families are affected when one of these healthcare crises hit them.
Now, if you could compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
The book I think this is most like is Still Alice. Readers may not have read that book, but they may have seen the movie. And the movie is about a woman who's trying to hang on to her humanity when she's being hit by the big wave of Alzheimer's disease. While ALS and Alzheimer's disease are quite different, I think the one common element is the ability to hang on to something you believe in, hope, the closeness of family, the care that you can give one another. That's what this book is about.
Now, the title doesn't seem to have much to do with either caregiving or ALS. Why did you come up with that title?
Montpelier Tomorrow. I wish I hadn't come up with that title. For one reason, most people don't know how to pronounce it. Let me just set the record straight and say it's Montpelier, the capital of Vermont, and that is one of the three cities where this book takes place. One of them is Evanston, Illinois. The second is Washington, D.C. And the third axis in the book is Montpelier, Vermont, where they all go on vacation one Christmas to celebrate one of the many last rituals of this family that's been hit by the tidal wave of ALS.
So who's the main character and what does she want?
The main character is Colleen Gallagher. She's a kindergarten teacher. She's a widow. She has 3 kids, and she's lived a very busy life trying to support them. She feels she made a mistake, and she doesn't know what it is with her oldest child, and that's her daughter, Sandy, the most vulnerable of her children, and the one who was really hit hard by her father's death. So Colleen wants to prove her love. She wants to make up for whatever it was she did in the past. And she's a pretty darn good mother, so you can bet that she didn't make too many mistakes. But nevertheless, every parent makes some mistakes, and she wants to prove she can be there for her daughter in this time of crisis.
What stands in her way?
I don't know too many people who have daughters, too many moms who have daughters who don't have some friction with that daughter. The daughter's parenting style might be different. In Colleen's case, she's kind of a slob. Her daughter is a neatnik. Colleen is outspoken. She's referred to one time in the book as Big Mama, and her daughter is quiet, shy, introverted, and self-conscious. They have some style differences, and all of a sudden, Big Mama moves back in the house and begins to take over. Not consciously, but Colleen doesn't realize the impact of her own actions.
What does the Ice Bucket Challenge have to do with all of this?
This book began long before the Ice Bucket Challenge took place. The Ice Bucket Challenge is something that raised a lot of awareness about ALS. But I think there are many people who took the Ice Bucket Challenge and they still don't realize what goes on in the home of someone who has ALS. So reading Montpelier tomorrow offers an opportunity to gain greater insight into what ALS really is and what families are up against.
Now, the daughter doesn't seem to appreciate the help that Colleen is offering. Why is that?
Nobody likes having their mother move back in for a long period of time. Colleen and her daughter initially team up to try to do the best they can for this young man who has ALS. But eventually, as time goes on, both of them get exhausted and sleep deprived. And they're kind of hanging on by their fingernails. Meanwhile, he lives longer and longer and becomes more and more demanding. So he's putting pressure on both these women. And in a sense, Colleen is the only safe place that her daughter has to vent her frustration. And so she becomes the target of her daughter's frustration with ALS and with the situation she's in.
So who's the hero in your book?
There are three main characters, one of whom is Colleen. The main character, the mom, I think she's the hero, and that's what readers have told me. Readers have told me that they really felt that they understood what it was like to be in Colleen's shoes. The other two main characters are her daughter and her daughter's husband, and they are living their own dramas. At one point, I could have written this. In fact, I did try to write this book from the dying man's perspective. And I just felt that Colleen's was the wiser voice, the voice that could bring perspective to the whole disease and the trajectory of caregiving that all of them were living through.
Who are Josh and Ben?
Josh and Ben are Colleen's grandchildren. Josh is 3 when she initially shows up at her daughter's house, and Ben is the new grandbaby who's born while she's there, soon after the young man gets his diagnosis. And she becomes very close to those grandchildren and begins to see the effect of the disease on them. There's a great deal of tension in the house, and it's primarily the tension that she sees impacting her grandchildren. And she wants to put a stop to that. She wants the dying man's life to be as happy as possible. She wants her daughter to be able to go off to work, come home to a nice meal, not have to worry. But Colleen's super competence is actually her greatest flaw.
So what does your book have to say about healthcare in the United States?
Healthcare in the United States is operating on the assumption that people will live longer and longer, that we'll do the most we can to extend life, and that in order for those people to live longer, we can shift the burden of their care to families. But the problem is families aren't living within blocks of one another. Normally, they're living across the country, a plane ride away. So when there's some health crisis, families get put under a lot of stress because the healthcare system assumes the family is going to pick up the slack. What if there is one child who does, another child who doesn't? What if there are no children? What if the person is single? The problem is that we don't have good options in these long-term care situations, especially for young people who have devastating illnesses like ALS.
What has been your most rewarding experience since publishing your book?
I've loved talking about this book in a book group, although for the most part, if I appear with a book group, I just sit quietly and I listen to what people say about the characters. It's clear to me that they're really identifying with the characters and that readers are finding their own lives reflected in the pages of this book. Readers have told me after these discussions that, gee, you really nailed it. This is just the way it is in families. These are the family dynamics.
In your opinion, who should buy your book?
This would be a good book for women who are 45 and up. The readers who've responded to this book most positively have been nurses, teachers. They're people who understand the dynamics of raising children. So they might be in the demographic of people who have a little bit of leisure time and they want to enjoy their hobbies. They want to enjoy quilting. They want to do some knitting. They want to spend time with their grandchildren. They want to do a little traveling, go to a national park, or maybe take a trip to Europe. And like Colleen in this book, all of that can change in an instant when something bad happens. It comes out of the blue, an illness of a loved one. Then you just feel torn. Gosh, I wanted to do this, but I thought I was done with child rearing. Now I'm getting drawn back into it. Or, gosh, I thought I was going to have a decade to myself. Oh no, my parents really need help. Those are the people that I think are going to respond to this book.
Well, time is getting very short, so the most important question, where can readers find you and your book?
A good place to look for me is on Facebook or Twitter. I'm at Marylee MacD in both places. And also my website, which is MaryleeMacDonald.org. And it's MacDonald, M-A-C.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Marylee MacDonald, and she is the author of Montpelier Tomorrow. Marylee, thanks very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of The Author Show. Please share this interview with your family and friends so that they too may have the opportunity to discover our guest and her work. And why not spread the word on social media? We look forward to you joining us next time for another great book and another great author on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. To contact us, call toll-free 1-877-955-8800. That's 877-55-8800. Or visit theauthorshow.com, theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.